It goes without saying that I hope City University of Hong Kong will play an important role in the future of this scheme. I hope that in future, we can greatly expand Campus Asia to encompass numerous other universities and countries. We are now starting to see the concrete direction we need to move to achieve an economic community. The nations of ASEAN have already decided to integrate their economies from 2015, and firm progress is underway. The other key nucleus of East Asia is a partnership between Japan, China, and South Korea. And these three countries have started discussing a free trade agreement. I think that first establishing a free trade agreement between Japan, China, and South Korea, and then creating a free trade area encompassing the ASEAN nations and Japan, China, and South Korea would be very beneficial for both Japan and China. Following the earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan 2.5 years ago, accident occurred at the nuclear power station in Fukushima, affecting not only Japan, but also creating great inconvenience for surrounding countries. As a former Prime Minister of Japan, I would like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt thanks for the large volume of disaster relief supplies Japan received from China, and also for China's search and rescue assistance. Please allow me once again to also apologize for this accident, including the ongoing failure to completely prevent the further spread of radiation. Although it will now be impossible to construct new nuclear power stations in Japan, a country which sits on top of numerous active faults, there are many countries in Asia, including China, which will, for the time being, have no choice but to rely on nuclear power as a source of energy. The reason I also think it is a pressing task for us to create frameworks for an integrated community, which also includes Japan in the field of nuclear safety. However, both in Japan and in all nations around the world, we must also make rapid progress on switching over to sustainable energy supplies. We should take note that Mongolia is estimated to have dormant energy resources equal to 70% of the world demand for power. Inner Mongolia, which I visited recently, is also rich in natural energy resources. If we are able to construct solar power generation and wind power generation facilities in these areas and build a power transmission network for distributing the power produced across East Asia to supply electricity to the required regions, East Asia could also become a community based on shared energy sources. Currency integration is an issue for the more distant future, but I believe we should investigate various different possibilities and the planning stage. However, with a single currency in the European Union producing both positive and negative outcomes, I do not think we should rush to reach any conclusions over a single currency in Asia, where economic disparities are even wider than in the EU. Culture plays an important role in bringing together people from different countries. From literature, theater, calligraphy, and painting, music and sports, through to fashion, cuisine, and animation. I think it's wonderful that the countries of East Asia can see commonalities and enjoy differences while competing across these fields. Cultural appreciation and rivalry allows us to learn the respective histories and inhabit a common space. Culture serves as a catalyst to boost feelings of community. Ladies and gentlemen, when seeking a path toward the East Asian community, the most important factor is relationships of trust between Japan, China, and South Korea, three nations which form one of the region's cores. However, it is of great concern that the relationships of trust between Japan and China and between Japan and South Korea have been under great strain since the Kan administration through to the Abe administration. It is no exaggeration to say that these respective relationships are now worse than they have been for more than 40 years. The biggest reason for this is Prime Minister Abe's stated intention to revisit the Murayama statement on Japan's past military aggression and the Kono statement on the issue of comfort women as part of his attempts to alter perceptions of history, a move which will further aggravate Japan's ongoing move to the right. In response to Abe's intentions, not only, of course, China and South Korea, but also the United States has expressed severe disquiet, labeling the move's historical revisionism. This year, on August 15th, a larger than usual number of Japanese cabinet ministers and politicians visited Yasukuni Shrine, which also enshrined Class A war criminals, angering the people of China and South Korea who suffered during the war. Furthermore, during a recent speech at think tank in New York, Prime Minister Abe made the unrepentant statement, "So call me, if you want, a right-wing militarist." As a Japanese citizen, I am deeply embarrassed by these actions and words, which go directly against the spirit of fraternity. The issue pouring further oil on the flames is the matter of the Senkaku Islands. After losing the war, Japan accepted the Potsdam Declaration, which promised to uphold the Cairo Declaration. The Cairo Declaration states that Japan should return territories taken from China during the Qing Dynasty, such as Taiwan and the Penghu Islands. Opinions in Japan and China differ on whether the phrase "such as" includes the Senkaku Islands or not. Therefore, in 1972, when Zhou Enlai and Kakue Tanaka meant to negotiate the normalization of diplomatic relations between Japan and China, Prime Minister Tanaka raised the issue of Senkaku Islands, but Premier Zhou responded that the important issue for discussion is the normalization of diplomatic relations, so let us avoid this issue. Prime Minister Tanaka said that, "I raised this matter as I felt it would be disadvantageous not to mention it, but if that is your opinion, let us shelve this discussion." Later, Deng Xiaoping said, "Let us resolve this issue through the wisdom of future generations." And the agreement to shelve the matter was reached. I was able to confirm these facts when I met with Lin Liun, Vice President of the China International Cultural Exchange Center, who interpreted the meeting between Tanaka and Zhou. I think they made a very wise decision. Our current politicians should learn from their wisdom. Regarding this issue, I think we should also consider the implications of valuable proposals on the sovereignty in the South China Sea between China and Vietnam brought by the Premier Lee Quoc-Nguyen's visit to Vietnam. This kind of pending question between Japan and China will be, I believe, headed towards solution by having the courage which gazes history correctly. The answer is hidden in history. Then the door will be opened for the future of youth of both Japan and China. It is my conviction that the East Asian Community concept will then move forward greatly towards realization. The unification of East Asia will lead to the peace in Asia, which will contribute to the security in the whole world greatly. Now is the time to start one step toward the goal. Let me conclude by quoting the words of Count Coudenhove-Kalergi. Every great historical happening began as an utopia and ended as a reality. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.